This week we're going to be recreating this effect. Let's get started. So I just set up a new project called Tire Burnout. I saved the file, and the first thing I'm going to do is import the asset. The main asset is going to be the tire pre-animated, which I prepared for you guys and exported as an Alembic. The reason why the file is in Alembic format is because it's one of the most common formats you'll find while working on a studio. At the moment, it is one of the most versatile file formats for carrying information between 3D applications and 2D applications. So I went with the Alembic just to show you a bit of that workflow as well. I'll start by creating a geometry container, and I'll call it tire import. I'll dive inside and create an Alembic. And let's go for it. So tire animated. This is the asset. As you can see, if you scroll through, you'll see that it is animated. I changed my timeline to go from 1 to 120, and I'm currently, so here on the time settings, we have 24 frames per second and 1 to 120. Now here on the options for the Alembic, if you middle mouse button over this node, you'll see that all you have is a packed Alembic. 1 point, 1 primitive, 1 vertex, and 1 packed Alembic. So we don't really have access to much of what's happening here. It's fine for rendering and stuff, but we need access to the actual geometry. As you can see, there is a part of the tire that is static here. This is part of the brake pad, and the rest is rotating. So what I'm going to do is here on the options, load as Alembic delayed load primitives. This is more efficient in terms of memory and in terms of moving your viewport. But we actually want access to the geometry. So here I'm going to use unpack Alembic delayed load primitives. So now it is unpacked. But again, we should middle mouse button, and you'll see that in this case we have points, primitives, vertices, and polygons. But a lot of the times when you import an Alembic coming from another 3D package, for instance, it is pretty common for you to actually find that you have a polygon soup, polysoup. So here on the polysoup primitives, in that case, if you have two options. Either you say that you do not want any polysoup primitives, which is kind of again a more efficient type of geometry, though it isn't as reliable for geometry operations or SOP operations. But so you can either tell it from right on the Alembic node that you do not want to use polysoup primitives, if that's the case, or you can just use a regular convert, and it will convert your polysoups into polygons if you want to as well. Okay, just a heads up regarding the polygon soups. In this case, we don't have that issue, but I'm sure you'll face it in the future eventually. So once we have this, let's middle mouse button again and see what we have. As you can see, we have two primitive groups already. I created for you guys to make it easier to split. You have the rotating elements and the static elements. So let's use a split. And we're mostly interested on the rotating part. So let's go and create a null. And that way we know that here, out rotating, and on the other output we'll have out static. Okay, the static part and the rotating part. We'll use these later on to set up the render, but for now we're mostly interested on the out rotating part for this purpose. Now, once we have this, we have taken care of the tire import. The other parameters that we have, the other attributes that we have on this are path, which is from the node that actually was saved from, which is actually the path of the node that was baked out or exported as an Alembic. Then you have your shop material path. We still don't have the material network here, but you already have things organized by materials. That's also useful. And then you have our groups. At point level, we basically just have a position. It's always good to inspect your geometry and figure out what information you're getting from your asset. You might have something that makes it that can make your life easier on whatever type of processing you'll have to do on that asset.